was just a tired cargo worker making another late delivery, until the crate opened. Inside weren't supplies or tech, but 3 alien women claiming him as their husband under a forgotten galactic law. Now bound by a contract he didn't understand. Jalen must survive a brutal frozen wasteland, resist temptation aboard a pleasure ship, and face the deepest secrets of a living garden. One wrong move means exile or worse. 3 trials, 3 sisters, 1 choice. And the universe is watching. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. Jalen. Oren didn't look at the stars anymore. There was a time when he dreamed of walking among them, maybe even commanding a ship or discovering a planet no one had seen. But those dreams had faded into something colder, smaller, like the flickering hallway lights of cargo port Farron Delta, where he now spent most of his time counting crates and pretending the silence wasn't eating him alive. He wore a faded jumpsuit stained with old grease, his boots too heavy and his back always sore. The dock smelled of machine oil and recycled air. Jalen moved like a man carrying invisible chains, slow, tired, and constantly watching the clock, though he wasn't sure why anymore. The days were all the same. "Oren," barked a voice behind him, sharp and metallic. Jalen turned. Supervisor Vorn approached, a towering creature with a sunken face and 4 mechanical eyes that buzzed faintly. "Late again," Vorn growled, his voice like rusted metal grinding on itself. "I'm not late," Jalen replied, flat. "System clocks are out of sync again." Vorn didn't argue. He just shoved a glowing tablet into Jalen's hands and stalked off, muttering. Jalen sighed, flipped the device over, and read the assignment. Delivery inspection in Dock 9. Simple. At least, it should have been. He made his way through the quieter wing of the port, the overhead lights dimmer, the corridors colder. Dock 9 hadn't been used much lately. When Jalen entered, he froze. In the center of the loading bay sat a crate unlike anything he'd seen before. Sleek, jet black, perfectly shaped, it shimmered with a strange energy. Along the edges ran glowing blue lines that pulsed like veins under skin. This wasn't standard cargo. It looked more like something from a museum or a military vault. The shipping details were unreadable. His tablet's language scanner struggled, glyphs twisting in ways that hurt his eyes. No listed sender, no destination, but the confirmation screen was active, awaiting biometric authorization. "Please confirm acceptance of delivery." Jalen hesitated. Protocol said to report unlisted shipments. That meant calling Vorn. That meant dealing with more questions, more paperwork. He looked back at the crate. It didn't even look dangerous, just weird. Probably a collector's item. Maybe someone's fancy art piece. He sighed and pressed his thumb to the scanner. The tablet chimed. A green light pulsed. Delivery accepted. Biometric signature verified. "Great," Jalen muttered. "Now lunch." He turned to leave, but the air behind him changed. Not a sound, not a breeze, just a shift. Like something heavy had entered the room but didn't move. He turned slowly and saw the crate was opening. But not like a machine. No hinges, no clunks. It bloomed, panels peeling back like flower petals. Mist spilled out. Silver glowing, smelling faintly of electricity and something floral. 3 figures stepped from the mist. The first was tall and proud, her skin a deep blue-green with golden markings that moved gently like rivers. She wore sharp armor across her shoulders, and her gaze could cut stone. She looked around with the air of someone used to being respected, and wasn't getting enough of it. "This is the reception chamber?" she asked, unimpressed. The second woman followed with the grace of a dancer and the smirk of someone who knew too much. Her dark suit sparkled in the mist. Her hair, a deep copper, fell over one side of her face. She looked Jalen up and down. "Is that him?" she purred. "He looks soft." The third was smaller, delicate. Her silver hair floated like it was underwater, and her dress shimmered between pastel shades as she moved. She clutched a stuffed bear in one hand. Her eyes, a soft, glowing gold, locked on Jalen with wonder. "You're real," she whispered, smiling like she'd found something she'd always been searching for. Jalen took a step back, then another. Wait, who are you? What is this? The tall one stepped forward. You are Jalen Oren of Farron Delta, correct? He nodded slowly, unsure if he should deny it. I am Kirill of House Morathi. These are my sisters, Neve and Solana. By biometric confirmation, you have accepted the Triad Union Accord. The what? The binding contract of marriage, Neve added cheerfully. Congrats, husband. Jalen stared at them. That's a joke, right? The voice that responded wasn't theirs. It came from all directions at once, a hovering, golden drone that materialized and displayed legal text in the air. Under Federation Accord 88 Zeta, biometric confirmation of delivery constitutes acceptance of cultural binding when marked by galactic ceremonial seal. You are now lawfully bound. You've got to be kidding me, Jalen whispered. Failure to proceed with union, the drone continued, may result in loss of citizenship rights, employment ban across star sectors, and possible relocation to non-civilized zones. Wait, are you banishing me if I don't go through with this? Correct, said the drone. Kirill crossed her arms. You may not like the terms, but you agreed. I didn't even know what it said. It was in whatever language that was. Doesn't matter, said Neve, shrugging. You touched the seal. That's consent. Solana stepped closer, holding out her teddy bear. It's okay if you're scared, she said softly. You can hold Mr. Fluff for a bit. Jalen looked at the bear, then at the three women, then at the tablet in his hand. His chest tightened. This wasn't cargo. This was the start of something he didn't understand, and couldn't walk away from. The cold hit Jalen like a punch to the chest. He gasped as the shuttle doors hissed open and the air of Scarnus 4 rushed in, sharp, dry, and colder than anything he'd ever felt. It cut through his field suit like it wasn't even there. The snow beneath his boots cracked with each step as he was pushed out by the force field and left standing alone in a frozen wasteland. Above him, the shuttle vanished into the sky without a word. This was Trial 1. The survival test of Veilwyn, firstborn of House Morathi, proud and distant. She hadn't said much on the way down. Just handed him a single rucksack with a protein bar, an insulated suit, a basic scanner, and one line of advice. Don't die. Jalen had laughed. She hadn't. Now he wasn't laughing either. The snow stretched endlessly around him, broken only by jagged rocks and the ghost of a mountain range far in the distance. His visor displayed a blinking target, coordinates marking an abandoned outpost about 14 kilometers northeast. The objective was simple. Reach the outpost. Survive 72 hours. Don't freeze. Don't starve. Don't get eaten. What could go wrong? He started walking. Slowly. Carefully. The slope wasn't steep, but the wind came in sharp bursts, pushing him sideways. He adjusted his balance, focused on each step, and kept the outpost marker glowing in the corner of his helmet. Screen for the first hour it was just cold. Miserable, yes, but manageable. He stayed warm by moving, talking to himself, counting steps, singing songs from childhood. Anything to drown out the silence. Then, in hour 2, the wind picked up. Hard. Snow came with it, not in flakes but in sheets, thick, blinding, smothering. His visibility dropped to barely 10 meters. The scanner beeped, angry and flashing red. The storm was coming fast. He tried not to panic. He adjusted his internal suit heater, powered down unnecessary sensors, and crouched behind a rock shelf. It was small, barely shielding him from the wind, but enough to catch his breath. He tried to chew the protein bar. It was frozen solid. He nearly cracked a tooth. The storm howled around him like something alive, and maybe it was, because just as he began to relax, he heard it. A low rumble, not thunder, not wind. Something heavier, deeper. It came from beneath the ground. Jalen's eyes widened. He slowly checked the motion sensor. One ping, just one, about 400 meters north, moving, fast. Then another sound, grinding, like something metal dragging against stone. Then, it appeared. At first, just a shimmer in the snow. But then, rising from the white ground like a nightmare, came a massive creature, long and smooth, covered in icy scales that reflected light like mirrors. A worm. No eyes, no face, just a rounded head and rings of sharp, clicking teeth. It was huge, maybe 4 meters long, maybe more. It turned toward him. He held his breath. Didn't move. The creature paused, sensing heat, or sound, or something he couldn't guess. Very, very slowly, Jalen reached into his bag and pulled out the protein bar. It was still frozen solid, and in that moment, it looked like a gift from the stars. He tossed it. The bar landed a few meters away in the snow with a dull thunk. The worm snapped toward it instantly, dove into the ground, and disappeared beneath the surface with a deep whoomp. Jalen didn't breathe for a full minute. Then he exhaled, trembling. "Okay," he muttered. "Heat-seeking. Don't be the warmest thing in the snow." He moved fast after that, sticking to rocks, staying low, switching off his heater every few minutes to avoid drawing attention. By hour 5, he could barely feel his fingers. Then, through the storm, he saw it. Flickering lights, a shape buried in snow, the outpost. It was smaller than he expected, half collapsed and crusted in frost, but it was real. Shelter, safety, maybe. He stumbled to the front door, only to find it frozen shut. No surprise. He looked around, grabbed a shard of broken paneling from nearby debris, and began chipping at the ice like a madman. His hands burned from the cold. His breath came in sharp bursts. It took 20 minutes. He didn't stop once. Finally, the door creaked open with a screech of metal. He shoved himself inside and collapsed. Dark, silent, still. He lay there for a moment, panting. Then he pulled himself up, found the backup generator, and inserted the power cell Velwyn had given him earlier. With a soft hum, the lights blinked to life. Heat began to fill the room. He was alive. Barely. A voice echoed from a wall panel. Soft, female, robotic. "Welcome, guest. Outpost online. Fabrication unit functional. Medical scan initiated." He slumped against the nearest wall and let the warmth soak into his bones. His whole body hurt. His skin was raw. But he had made it. And then, without warning, the outpost door opened again. Velwyn stood there, tall and quiet, arms folded. Her breath didn't even fog the air. "You survived," she said. "Barely," Jalen groaned. She stepped forward, looking around the room with a critical eye. "You improvised, used logic under pressure, stayed alive." He looked up at her. "You say that like you're surprised." "I am," she said, but not disappointed. She turned, walked toward the door, and paused. "Rest. Trial 1 is complete. The others will be harder." With that, she vanished into the snow. Jalen didn't move for a long time. He just sat there staring at the heater, the frost slowly melting from his suit. For the first time in years, something stirred inside him. It wasn't pride. It was purpose. The doors of the pleasure ship shimmered open like a curtain of liquid. Jalen stepped through and immediately felt like he didn't belong. The hallway glowed with soft pinks and golds. The floor hummed under his boots, and the very air smelled like warm sugar and something floral. Music floated from nowhere, soft and smooth like a lullaby sung by stars. Nida stood at the end of the hallway waiting. She wore a flowing robe of shifting colors, black, red, and violet all at once, and her eyes sparkled like they knew every secret he had ever tried to keep. She smiled when she saw him, slow and knowing. "Welcome to Mirith's Vale," she said, her voice like silk sliding across glass. "Your second trial begins now." Jalen raised an eyebrow. "This place looks more like a luxury spa than a test." Nida chuckled, walking toward him with grace that made him forget how to stand properly. "That's the point. This trial isn't about how long you can survive. It's about who you really are when everything you want is right in front of you." He didn't answer. She reached out and touched the wall. A doorway opened. They stepped into a large room shaped like a circle, its walls made entirely of mirrors. But the reflections didn't show the room. They showed him, or versions of him. A stronger him, a more confident him, one where he wore a captain's uniform, another where he stood beside someone who looked like family. He stared, overwhelmed. "What is this?" "The mirror maze," Nida said. "It shows what you want most. But here's the rule. You can't reach for any of it. You're here to resist, and if you can't..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Jalen followed her deeper into the maze. As they walked, the mirrors changed. Some showed memories. His old room on Earth, a night sky with no stars, a younger version of himself reading space maps and dreaming big. Others showed temptations, power, fame, warmth, touch. At one point he saw Nida, reflected back in a way that made his heart skip. In the mirror she reached for him, eyes soft, lips parted. In reality she only smirked. "Don't fall for the reflections. They lie." "Then why show them?" he asked. "Because truth hides in what we want most." They sat on a low couch, in the center of the next room. Floating glass tables hovered around them, offering drinks that shimmered with tiny lights. Jalen didn't take one. Nida did. She sipped something deep purple, swirled it, then asked casually, "What's the one thing you've never told anyone?" Jalen blinked. "That's your idea of small talk?" "No," she said. "It's my trial." He thought for a moment. "That I don't think I matter. Not really. I wake up, I work, I go to bed. If I disappeared tomorrow, the universe would move on without blinking." Nida's smile faded a little. "That's not a small answer. I thought you wanted truth." "I did," she said. "I just didn't expect you to give it." They sat in silence for a while. Then Nida leaned closer, resting her chin on her hand. "Do you know why I chose this trial for you?" Jalen shook his head. "Because most people see me as a challenge. A distraction, something to chase or conquer. I wanted to see if someone could want me and still say no." He looked at her, puzzled. "Say no to what?" "To all of it," she said, gesturing around the glowing room. "The temptation, the illusion, the idea that happiness comes easy. Real connection doesn't come from giving in. It comes from restraint, from seeing the person behind the performance." Jalen didn't answer. He didn't have to. Hours passed in the mirror maze. Nida tested him, offering whispered promises, gentle touches, soft glances. The air itself felt heavy with want. The ship was tuned to match his human biology, even down to the rhythm of his heartbeat. But Jalen never crossed the line. He watched the illusions, sat beside Nida and listened. At hour 10, her confidence started to fade. She changed outfits 3 times, trying different looks, each more revealing than the last. But her movements grew slower, less playful, her laughter quieter, her eyes more unsure. "Why aren't you giving in?" she asked finally. "Because you don't really want me to," he said softly. "You want someone to see you, not just your body. You." Nida looked down, silent. At hour 12, the ship chimed. The trial was complete. Jalen sat on the floor of the central chamber, exhausted. Nida stood at the edge of the room, her arms wrapped around herself. For once, she didn't look like the seductress. She looked like someone tired of pretending. "You passed," she said quietly. "I don't feel like I won anything," she smiled faintly. "You didn't win by resisting. You won by seeing me when I didn't want to be seen." She walked up to him, placed a hand on his cheek and whispered, "You're not like the others." He met her eyes. "Neither are you." And for the first time since he boarded the ship, Nida didn't smile to hide something. She just smiled. The garden was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that felt empty, but peaceful, alive, breathing. Jalen stepped into the bio garden on deck 12, blinking as sunlight, soft and golden, filtered through a glass dome above. Warm air greeted him, carrying the scent of lilacs and something sweet, like honey. Grass swayed gently beneath his boots, blue-green blades brushing against his ankles. He hadn't seen anything so calm in a long time. Waiting for him, near the center of the garden, stood Ceres. She looked different from her sisters, less like a warrior or a mystery, and more like someone from a dream. Her dress shifted colors as she moved, flowing around her like water. Her silver hair was braided in soft loops, small beads woven into the strands, catching the light like tiny stars. She wasn't holding weapons, or standing in some dramatic pose. She was holding a teddy bear. "You came," she said with a hopeful smile. Jalen nodded slowly. "I didn't have much choice." Her smile faltered for a second and then returned. "I know, but I'm still glad you did." They walked together through the garden, not speaking at first. Everything around them felt carefully designed. Trees with spiraling branches, flowers that shifted shades depending on the angle of the sun, even the wind that moved like a sigh. Jalen glanced around and said, "This place doesn't feel like a test." Ceres looked down. "That's because it isn't. Not the way the others were." He gave her a sideways glance. "Then what is it?" She paused by a tree whose leaves glittered like crystals. "It's a bond trial. Mine isn't about surviving danger or resisting desire. Mine is about trust, truth, letting someone see the parts of you that no one else does." Jalen blinked. "So, therapy?" She giggled. "Maybe, but harder." They sat beneath a flowering tree, where the petals drifted down like slow snow. Ceres hugged her knees and looked out at the glowing pond in front of them. "I want to show you something," she said after a long silence. "But it's hard." Jalen frowned. "What kind of something?" Ceres turned to him. "Do you trust me?" He hesitated, but then nodded. "I think I do." She reached out and gently touched his forehead with 2 fingers. In an instant, the garden vanished. He was no longer sitting under a tree. Now he stood inside a cold, white hallway. Walls of metal surrounded him. Through a glass panel, he saw a younger version of Ceres, no older than 6, hooked up to wires, sitting alone on a metal table. Scientists in suits talked around her, never to her. Their words were cold. Recombinant DNA stable. Emotional output unpredictable. Should we put her back into containment? The little girl was crying. No one comforted her. Jalen's heart ached. The vision shifted. Now Ceres, older but still young, stood in the middle of a chamber. Light exploded from her body as soldiers surrounded her. They screamed as invisible force knocked them backward, burning holes into the walls. She collapsed afterward, curled into herself, whispering, "I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to." Then, darkness. Jalen blinked and gasped. He was back in the garden. Ceres sat beside him, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I didn't want you to see all of it," she whispered, "but I had to, so you'd understand." He caught his breath. "Understand what?" "That I'm not supposed to be here," she said, her voice trembling. "I was made, grown, in a lab as a hybrid between species. I wasn't chosen for the Union. I hacked into the system to be part of it. I wasn't supposed to be picked. I just wanted someone to choose me, not as a weapon, as a person." Jalen stared at her. The broken, soft truth of her made his chest tighten. "You were scared I'd walk away?" She nodded. He reached out, gently taking her hand. "I saw the worst part of you," he said, "and I'm still here." Ceres looked at him, eyes wide and full of light. "But you haven't seen the rest." They walked deeper into the garden, past the bright parts into shadowed places. Trees here were twisted. The sky above was darker. They stopped beside a still black pond. Ceres stepped onto the water as if it were solid. Jalen followed. She pointed down. In the reflection, he didn't see his own face. He saw himself dying, in fire, in cold, in silence. Over and over. "I see these when I dream," she said. It happens when I think someone's going to leave me, and if they do, something inside me breaks. It affects everything around me. Sometimes people too. Jalen looked up at her. You think you're dangerous? I know I am. He stepped closer. Then let me decide the risk. She blinked. Why? Because before you and your sisters I was just drifting through life, he said. Now I feel something again. You, Saris, make me feel alive. The pond shimmered. Flowers started blooming again in the shadows. She looked at him, tears falling again, but this time they were different. Does this mean I passed? She asked softly. You never had to, he said. They returned to the center of the garden, sitting beneath the same tree. She rested her head on his shoulder. The teddy bear lay across his lap. Thank you, she whispered. For what? He asked. For not looking away, she said. He kissed her forehead gently. I couldn't if I tried. Just then, a soft chime echoed in the garden. A message appeared in the air. Proceed to the Hall of Union. Final decision required. Jalen stared at it, heart pounding. 3 sisters. 3 trials, 1 choice, and only 1 path forward.